Council on Substance Abuse. I'm down at the state capitol. You are looking live as we get ready for another great recovery town hall meeting hosted by our executive director, Neil Campbell. To everybody on Facebook, we get started right around 12 o'clock. So just a couple of minutes out from start time. It's a great time to make a share on Facebook and invite other people to watch and join. If you're in the waiting room or on Zoom, we've got a great program today with one of our two United States senators and Chris Johnson, one of our great friends and allies with Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. And then Neil and I will give an update, and we may have some friends come by later to say hello to us. Sometimes I'll say hello. That was Representative Katie Dempsey right there that just walked past and said hey. She's on her way to a Rules Committee meeting. I'm down here at the Capitol. This is a first for me.
Live broadcast.
We're about 1 minute out from 12 o'clock. Still looking for Senator staff. If you're on the phone, message in with Brian Kite. Let Brian Kite in the chat know that y'all are on. I've got my mask ready. Wearing the mask from I Hope, our great friends and allies, the great RCO in Warner Robins, Georgia, Teresa Stewart. Great mask.
I can't see. You got a nice view there, Chris. Hadn't seen your new office yet. You moved right around pandemic time.
Yeah, we still haven't finished unpacking.
All right.
We're putting together IKEA furniture.
Oh, goodness.
All right, Neil. Well, it's 12 o'clock. This is the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse Recovery Town Hall meeting hosted by our Executive Director, Neil Campbell. I do want to make an announcement here right at the beginning. This is a public meeting. There may or may not be media present. If everything said is on the record. So want to make sure that that's understood. And as Brian gave an announcement earlier, if you don't want your image shown, go ahead on your end of the Zoom and take your image down. And if you don't want your name, change your thing. But this is certainly a very, very public meeting. And we are so thankful to have everybody here. I'd like to let Neil say hello real quick to everybody.
Hey, hello, everybody. This is our 13th in a row town hall. Those of us in recovery usually mark our time. So we're marking our 13th week doing this recovery town hall. My name is Neil Campbell, the executive director of the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. I'm also a woman in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is that next month, it'll be 30 years since I've had my last drink or illegal drug. And I speak out about my recovery because I want everyone to have the opportunities that I've had to get and to stay well. And because of my recovery, I get to do this wonderful job and hang out with all of you. So we're going to get started in just a second. Always, as usual, we like to take a moment and thank our producers of the show, William Carnes and Brian Kite. They have been keeping us safe on Zoom for 13. This is our 13th one, so I don't think this will be any different. You guys, we have a big show for you today, a big meeting. We are lucky enough to have one of two United States senators from Georgia in our town hall. We have not had a United States senator yet, so this is a first for us. So mark it down, and it'll be a day that'll go down in history. As we usually start, we just want to welcome everyone and say we understand that the virus is still providing challenges for some of us. A lot of us, we all have to pay attention to this. We started this, several months ago because we wanted you to know that you're not alone. We know that we've got public and private leaders working around the clock, trying to make things better. For those of us who are in recovery or seeking recovery, this could be even more problematic. We want you to know we've got a peer support warm line that's available to you, as well as some 12-step meetings that are available in the rooms at virtualna.org. We also, there's recoveryspeakers.com. If you want to go there, you could go to our website as well. And we're going to talk about some more resources in just a second. But as usual, we always start with this. What can you do personally? And I would say listen to health experts. That's what we've been saying all along. Listen to those. Go to the CDC website. Go to our Georgia Department of Public Health website. You can remain hopeful. If you can't remain hopeful, call someone you know who is a hope dealer, and they will remain hopeful for you. And you can do that by calling our warm line. You can call one of the warm lines with the Mental Health Consumer Network. There's people who have lots of hope that are on the line. Also, practice wellness. My gym opened this 2 weeks ago, and I went to my first spin class in 3 months. I'm not sure I'll go back, but it was interesting. It's part of my wellness program. And as we always do at the Georgia Council, we say lead with love. If you can keep your heart soft. These are some challenging times we're getting through together, but lead with love is our motto. And also stay connected. The opposite of addiction is human connection. Let's stay connected with each other. And if you can, check on each other. If someone comes into your mind that you're thinking of, that you wanted to know if they're doing okay, please go ahead and check on them. That's the right thing to do. I love it when people check on me. Also, one of the things I thought today, if you could put in the chat box how you're practicing self-care, how you're doing this. Because I know most of my friends who are either seeking or in recovery, they have really good ways that they're taking care of themselves. And so tell us in the chat box, if you would, how you're staying well, how you are taking care of yourself. Again, I said I went to the gym. I also ate my first Georgia peach of the season this week, which was pretty amazing as usual. But we'd love to hear how you're doing that. So thanks. Let's see. So moving on, we'll get a couple of those. Brian, can you read a few of those for us?
Sure, we got walks with the dogs, sitting in nature, working out every day, meditating at the local salt cave, hiking, taking care of plants, yoga, therapy, hanging with the dogs, walking, following directions of wife, eating a Georgia peach, spending time with family, dog walks, once again, yoga, meditation, gym, running, talking with peers, watercolors, walking, praying, dogs, volunteering, prayer, meditation, gratitude list, dogs again. And so dogs and meditation and yoga and getting out there in nature, recurring themes.
And Trip Tally is watching giraffe videos. I'm gonna have to do that. I watch kitten videos, puppy videos, but giraffe, I'll do it, Trip, thank you. So those of you who need to practice some self-care, maybe some of these will help you out as well. Thank you guys for that. That's awesome. We also want to recognize that this week we had a huge Supreme Court decision which expanded the 1964 civil rights to those of us who are LGBTQ, that we can no longer be fired at work, which is awesome. I did say to my partner, hey, you can be gay at work. And she said, I'm always gay at work, but now you can't be fired for it. So we celebrated this week. We also started on June 4th, the beginning of Pride. GCSA started virtual all recovery meetings for LGBTQ, and we'll have that again tomorrow at noon. So please spread the word about that. We've had some really great meetings. There's a lot to be grateful for. So don't forget that. Also, we have our Spanish speaking, Spanish language virtual all recovery meetings on Tuesdays at noon and 8:30. That's growing and it's really exciting. So it's the only one that I know of. It's actually virtual all recovery meetings that's in Spanish speaking for our Spanish speaking friends. And then 7 days a week, the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse has 2 virtual all recovery meetings, 10 in the morning, 11 at night. We've had as many as 100 people a day on this all recovery meeting. It's really, really exciting. A lot of good recovery shows up at this meeting. And you know, I just want to commend everybody who takes part in that and who shows up, because it's really great. And as I said before, remember, you're not alone. CARE's warm line. It's someone like me, someone like those of us in recovery on the phone who answer the phone from 8:30 in the morning until 11 at night. We don't push you into recovery. We don't pull you into recovery. We walk alongside you as you figure out your own recovery journey. So please, if you need help, please do that. And Jeff, so Jeff is live. If those of you who are just joining us, Jeff is live at the Capitol today. God bless him. He's doing double duty as a co-host as well as an advocate down there for us at the state Capitol. So Jeff, I'm going to ask if you have the ability to introduce one of our United States senators, which we're really happy to have today.
I do, Neil. Thank you for that. And it's a real privilege to have one of our 2 United States senators with us today. I think one of her greatest accomplishments is her chief of staff, of course, who we're all big fans of, and her husband. So well done on your hiring. But Senator Kelly Loeffler was appointed by Governor Kemp to succeed Senator Johnny Isakson. She has come in and immediately made a strong impact for Georgia. And we are all just so thankful that a member of the United States Senate would take time out of their busy schedule to get to know and talk with the Georgia recovery community. And Senator, we are a statewide network all over this state. We come from all walks of life, and we are proud of who we are and what we stand for. And we're very honored to have you here. And we'd just like to turn the floor over to you, ma'am.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Jeff, and thank you, Neil, and everyone at the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse for having me on this call today. It's really wonderful to be able to be with you and the important work that you're doing. I want to thank you for that. I also want to say that if you hear some bells going off in the midst of my remarks here, we're in the middle of voting. I'm literally sitting in the Capitol building right now, and so it's not a fire alarm.
No problem. No problem.
So thank you. And I do want to reiterate the importance of the work that you're all doing. I know I've seen it in our communities firsthand, up close, the opioid substance abuse epidemic that has ravaged our country requires that really we all work together to fight this on every single front. And it's a multi-pronged effort, ranging from substance abuse, from treatment to education to law enforcement, and protecting those that are in recovery, and all the support that you give means so much. And I know that we in Congress, we can't solve the addiction crisis here in Washington, but I know that we can equip the experts on the ground where you are with the tools that we need to succeed to drive back the effects of this epidemic. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity here to hear from all of you at home on this issue, and to continue the dialogue, to continue to collaborate so that we can address these challenges together with the right resources. And so as we've seen the response to the pandemic that we're all still living through, it has had societal impacts. It's not only jobs, it's not only income, it's futures impacted, it's isolation that has caused further alcohol, drug abuse, depression, suicide, and alarmingly a dramatic spike in domestic abuse. And I'm pleased to say that the CARES Act, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, did provide $425 million to address mental health and substance abuse disorders caused by the pandemic response, which includes $250 million for behavioral health clinics and $100 million in emergency response grants. So I know that those funds are still working through the system, but I believe that they will help make an impact by providing resourcing at a time when funding is scarce for many things that need to be done, particularly at times of crisis. So it's really critical that we not lose sight of these issues amid a pandemic, particularly at a time when so many are out of work, over 20 million Americans. So we see the immediate impact. In March alone, the disaster distress hotline saw a nearly 1,000% increase in call volume just in March. So it shows the need that's out there. It highlights the need to continue to support these programs and gives additional funding to do so for mental health and recovery services. And those are efforts. When I was in the private sector, leading into the Senate, I was in the private sector for nearly 3 decades. Those are causes I was actively involved in. So really, as we think about in Washington, how do we help folks get back to work, families and communities, to raise everyone back up, get back to work, to school, to church, to synagogue, to the things that you want to do safely. As we were delivering the CARES Act, I started thinking ahead about how do we, once we get the relief out, the things like Paycheck Protection Program, the economic impact checks, the $1,200 checks, things like that. Once we get through this moment, how do we help people get on with going about their lives safely, learning to live with the effects of COVID, but also helping us strengthen our economy again and provide that opportunity that lifts everyone up. So I created a plan called the USA RISE plan, and RISE stands for Restoring and Igniting the Strength of Our Economy. And it's really broken down into 4 pillars that can be put into action through legislation, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. The 4 pillars are made in the USA, grown in the USA, hiring in the USA, and families in the USA. And so for many communities and families, I've included elements that are critical components in getting livelihoods back, but also ensuring that the societal impacts of the pandemic don't persist and help us get past this moment in a healthy, productive manner. And so I'll just kind of touch on each one, because each one is really formed not only with Georgia in mind, but obviously Georgia first and foremost, but all Americans. So how do we help, prioritize Americans' economic and health security? The first pillar, grown in the USA, I'm actually introducing a piece of legislation today. I'll talk about that in a second, but in Georgia, agriculture is still our #1 industry. And it really was highlighted during the pandemic when we saw the disruptions to our food supply. And, certainly never in my lifetime have we talked about rationing meat at the grocery store. We saw the supply chain disruptions, not only in meat, but to food pantries at a time when they were so dependent upon to provide food in our communities. So in addition to protecting our food security, which to me is national security, we should never be dependent on another country for our food. At the same time, for those that depend on us most, there are creative, innovative ways that we've come up with to serve that need. So an example is the Farms to Families program, and that really leverages our strength in agriculture, particularly in states like Georgia, where agriculture is #1, to connect food banks, nonprofits with food grown locally. And how do we get that through the system quickly and efficiently? And that's something that's happening right now. And I was really pleased to join Secretary Perdue at an event in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, where literally they were boxing up beautiful produce grown on farms around Georgia that had no other way to get distributed. The produce would have rotted in the fields, but it went to food banks. And it was wonderful to think that families that were without food would have this amazing produce to complement their meals. So that's the first one. Hiring in the U.S. And I should say I was raised on a farm, so I understand really firsthand the work that goes into raising these crops, and it's so good to see it to be able to be delivered to families in need. The second pillar, hiring in the USA, nothing creates more opportunities than a job, than that economic opportunity to engage in society. I know, my first job literally was working in the fields. My second job was waitressing and bussing tables. And through that increasingly responsible career progression, I saw firsthand how impactful jobs are. So I've created initiatives to make sure that the unemployment benefits that are available through the CARES Act and has helped so many Americans through this challenging time do not compensate folks more for staying at home than for working. It's vitally important that we don't discourage work, that we don't discourage that career path and that opportunity, but helping folks get back to work. I've also sponsored legislation to make sure that when businesses reopen, when hospitals reopen, they aren't the subject of litigation. So for those who take steps responsibly to provide for the safety measures that are required, that they can't be sued. So we need to make sure that we don't enable trial lawyers to profit off the pandemic to pursue cases when businesses are just trying to reopen and provide their services. The next pillar is families in the USA. You know, this was really informed by my work around the state of Georgia, hearing from families that they did not have reliable options for and affordable options for childcare. So creating innovations in funding to help them fund their childcare expenses and get back to work. And similarly with affordable healthcare insurance, making sure that we don't foreclose options for ensuring those who might be in between jobs for a short term. And, you know, healthcare, as I go around the state and talk to folks, healthcare is at the top of everyone's list, whether I'm in the suburbs, whether I'm in a rural community, everyone wants to have that access to affordable healthcare insurance. The next pillar, made in the USA, you know, I think one thing we learned during this pandemic was our nation's over-reliance on China. And we saw that in every supply chain, but particularly in the medical field. So medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, PPE, we do not need to be at the mercy of foreign entities like the Chinese Communist Party for what our citizens need when it comes to life-saving medications or PPE that our healthcare providers rely on to do their jobs. But not only that, what businesses need now to reopen. We've successfully rebuilt that stock thanks to the great strength of American companies who have chipped in to help solve the supply chain issues there. And I'm excited to see what we can do to incentivize businesses to do more of their manufacturing in America. So I authored a bill alongside Senator Joni Ernst and Ted Cruz called Beat China, and it stands for Bring Entrepreneurial Advancements to Consumers here in North America. And it really just provides those incentives, not the mandates, but the incentives to invest in America, to hire American workers. And it makes sure that our supply chain no longer depends on a foreign country particularly for medicine, but potentially in other areas. So these are some of the things that I think will strengthen America. I know we will come out of this moment stronger than ever. I think the work that you do contributes to that as well, and I want to thank you for that. In terms of next steps here in Washington, there's a lot of talk about the next round of economic relief, and we're certainly looking at that. That likely won't be on the table until July. It's very important that we look at the data that's coming out. What areas did we miss? What needs to be addressed in our communities? How do we better take care of the effects of this pandemic and make it targeted and responsive? And so I'll continue to take feedback from all Georgians to hear where those needs are as I continue to be proud to represent and support our state in the U.S. Senate. So I just want to thank you all for having me on the call today, and acknowledge that the challenges that you face in addressing substance abuse is not easy, but I commend the great work that you're doing, and I just want to make sure that you know that I'm here to help our fellow Georgians who are struggling right now. So I'd be happy to take a couple questions. I'll pause here and turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Thank you so much for your hard work. We really appreciate you, and thanks for that quick update. So I have a kind of a serious question and a not too serious one. The not too serious one is, we were putting some information in our chat box about how people are practicing self-care during this time. So how are you practicing self-care as a United States Senator?
Well, and I'm sorry for the bells going off here. I can tell you the responses that involved pets, being outdoors, and trying to keep healthy through movement and good nutrition. I'm all about that. And I also think, gosh, there's so many great answers on there. Music. So yeah, all of the above.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's important that we all stay well and stay connected together. So the other one that's a little more serious is the Wellstone Diminishing Mental Health and Substance Use Disorder Parity Act that passed in 2008. Basically says that if you offer health care and you offer a behavioral health benefit, it cannot be less favorable than the benefit limitations on other medical or surgical benefits. And do you support that? And is there, one of the things we're trying to do in Georgia is to make sure that our private health insurers, as well as in the public sector, are providing mental health and substance use disorder benefits at the same level as other healthcare benefits?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, it's very important that the law is implemented in the way it was written and intended. And in this particular case, that means that we have to ensure that mental health services are not restricted more than other healthcare benefits. And I know firsthand, mental health support plays a huge role in recovery and addiction. I served on the board of a nonprofit mental health institution. I've seen the importance of it, and it's so important that patients with these issues have access to the care that they need. So I'll continue to monitor that. I should have mentioned that I'm on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee in the Senate. So I'm working very closely with the leadership on healthcare issues, and actually just had a hearing this morning on telehealth, where the trend toward telehealth and making sure that that effort was supported, because it does expand access, it does expand the ability to be responsive in a more real-time nature, which is so important. So I'll continue to advocate for that as well.
That's great.
Neil?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, so I do have two quick questions, but Senator, with your quick indulgence, we have a very special member of the House here. He's our co-chairman senator in the General Assembly of the Working Group on Addiction and Recovery. He's not giving a speech. He's going to literally say hello from one vote to another.
Hello, just saying hello to everybody. Glad you guys are still continuing your calls on Wednesdays. But we're back at work working for you, and I wish you all good luck.
Thanks, Eric.
That was State Representative Eric Allen. Senator, my two quick questions are policy-based. One is HR 2466 is a bipartisan piece of legislation over in the House. It's not a tax increase. What it proposes to do is to stabilize current congressional appropriations for, in essence, the recovery community. And for whatever reason, even though it's got a lot of House members supporting it, the Speaker's not moved it, and we hope that she does. My question to you is, would you consider taking a look at that and be a supporter of this on the Senate side? It really provides much needed stability for Georgia. And then I'll follow up with one more quick question.
Right, great questions. So these grants are authorized through the fiscal year 2021, which is good. And they play obviously a very critical role so that we can support state responses to opioid abuse. I mean, the states are critically important here. And I think those grants getting reauthorized are going to be an important part of our conversation because I know that there's a strong will to continue to respond to the opioid crisis.
Well, thank you for that. It would certainly really stabilize a lot of local efforts and communities. And my last question does allude to potential future federal support. I heard a comment today from one of our legislators here that kind of bothered me. And what they said was, well, if there is more federal efforts, you know, they've already taken care of recovery, so there shouldn't be any more. My plea to you, and I think I speak for the whole Georgia recovery community in a united voice, is to saying, you know, our disease is only just beginning.
It's over.
Just beginning. And so we would certainly hope that the Congress would consider keeping the medical issues relevant, and no issue is going to be more relevant than substance use disorder as COVID progresses, and just any consideration you can give us, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning that and your advocacy. I know that all of you're celebrating 20 years now of helping Georgians recover. So I want to acknowledge that and let you know that, the work you do has my support. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator. We really appreciate it. We have one more quick question if we could, or Jeff, did you have another one?
No, that was it. I'll just go ahead and say my thank yous real quick. Thank you so much, Senator. You and your staff. Your staff was terrific. I want to compliment them publicly. Thank you for your support for recovery, and I'll yield the floor back to Neil because I'm down here at the Capitol and it's really loud.
Yeah, I'll do.
Take care.
Thanks, Senator. We're just one more quick question, if we could. We have from our one of our listeners is that Jake Roberts, who runs one of our recovery community organizations, says that only half the counties in Georgia have a psychologist. And what we know is that the number of psychologists and psychiatrists are going down in Georgia, but the number of peer professionals like us, like myself, and how we train are going up. And do you support peer support? And do you know about peer support? And if you don't, is there ways we can help educate you about that, at least tell you about how we use our lived experience to help others get recovery?
Yeah, I sure would be interested to learn more. I'm not as familiar, so I would love to definitely learn more. I think the more innovative we can be with the resources we have, the more people we can serve to support recovery. And so please do let me and my office know about this, and we'll get up to speed.
We'll do it. We'll put a package together for you. Senator,
Thank you.
that's all we have right now for you right now, but thank you so much for stopping by, and thanks for your hard work, and keep practicing self-care, and we hope to see you back in the States soon.
Thank you. My best to all of you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Neil.
Yeah.
Another special guest had a moment for us. I'm going to give her my phone. Everybody knows her.
Oh, hey.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say hello from the Capitol, and for everybody to not give up. The budget process is going on. We are still advocating for the programs that are so important to you. We know they're going to be cuts. We just want to make sure that the recovery community doesn't pay a higher price than other programs. So keep the faith, and we'll keep working for you.
Thank you so much, Sharon
You're
Cooper.
welcome.
We love you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
Really
Okay.
that. All right, Jeff.
There you go.
The man in the field. He's out there. All right.
All right, Neil, why don't you introduce our next guest?
I will. How can I introduce this guy? I don't know. Everybody doing okay? Let's hang in there. We had a United States Senator, and now we have one of my personal heroes, someone I love to work on projects with and have been working with for years and years. He is now doing amazing work as the Director of Communications at the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. He is a friend of all and an advocate for many. So Chris, thank you so much for the work that you and Sherry are doing at the Mental Health Consumer Network. And we just want to turn the mic over to you for a while and talk about how the network is experiencing some of these cuts as well, and how we can help advocate. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Neil. My name is Chris Johnson. I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that for the past 10 years, my substance use and mental health recovery have allowed me to be an active and contributing member of my family, my community, and my workplace. I vote, I pay taxes, I feed and walk my dogs every day, and I show up. Last week, I used a week of vacation time to help my mom pack for a move. That is not something that would have happened 11 years ago, I can promise you. As a result of my recovery, I'm a better son, a better employee, a better friend, and a better citizen. Today, I am the Director of Communications for the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, and I am here to share a little about where we are with mental health funding in Georgia's legislative state budget process. Our executive director, Sherry Jenkins Tucker, couldn't be here today because we are actually going through an audit in the middle of everything else, our annual internal audit that we do before the end of the fiscal year.
Hey,
so,
Chris.
That's a thing. Yeah,
Oops, Chris.
go ahead.
We're not going to do this much, but this person really wanted to say hello really quickly.
Sure.
Hey guys,
absolutely.
Representative Micah Gravely. I'm here with Representative James Burchett,
Hello.
Representative Joseph Gullett. Just wanted to say Godspeed to you guys. Thank you for leading the way. Thank you for not giving up on those who have been where you are, who are where you have been. Thank you so much. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we recognize recovery, the battle that is every day, continuing every day for you guys. So thank you so much for continuing to work together. Appreciate Jeff. I've known him for many, many years. Appreciate the testimony that not only he brings to this issue, but all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks. Sorry, Chris.
No, we're good.
He's used to
We're
chaos.
good. Improv is what we do. Okay, so first, I need to thank the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse for the opportunity to be here, to Jeff Riedla for organizing this, and to Neil Campbell for introducing me to peer support back in 2015 when I was working for a community service board in South Georgia, and where I got to see firsthand how hard Georgia's public behavioral health system has to work to provide quality treatment and recovery resources with so little funding. And that's really the first thing I want to talk about. It's just the background, so people have a sense of where we were before any of us were even thinking about a pandemic. Historically, Georgia spends less on mental health and substance use treatment and recovery than most any other state. Depending on which chart you look at and how they determine their numbers, it can vary, but it is never good for Georgia. Georgia is always near the bottom of per capita spending for mental health especially. If you look at the Kaiser Family Foundation numbers, Georgia spends about $59.33 per capita on mental health, where the national average is $119.62. So even if Georgia doubled its spending on mental health, we would still be below the national average, right? And I don't think any of us think that's okay, or I hope not. I'm going to assume positive intent, right? That's what we do. Back in January when Governor Kemp, January seems like so long ago, right? But back in January when Governor Kemp was seeking departmental budget cuts in anticipation of an economic downturn, but not the budget crisis we're in now, Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Commissioner Judy Fitzgerald testified that the $80 million in cuts the governor was seeking would, and this is a quote, increase suicidality, substance abuse disorder, and demands on crisis services. Right? She said then, and again, this is a direct quote, the safety net is stretched to the max. Now she's being asked to cut more than twice that amount, right? And Georgia, as poorly funded and stretched as the safety net was, it was still intact, right? And it's all we have. We need it to remain intact. I mean, we need it to be better, but it's got to remain intact. And I do want to talk a little bit about Georgia's legislative process. Even in a normal year, it is always messy and always hard to follow. And sometimes it is a real surprise when you see what lands on the governor's desk to be signed. But especially at times like this, when the governor is asking departments to make steep cuts and legislators are being pulled in every direction by different groups, it's easy for mistakes to be made. It happens all the time. It's not just in Georgia. It happens in every state. It happens in Congress. And, you know, rush legislation especially, you know, almost always includes mistakes that are corrected in future legislation. You know, just this morning, we received news that the legislature actually did not implement the budget restoration to mental health and some of the substance use. I'll let Neil talk to that in a minute. The changes that were recommended by the Commissioner Fitzgerald just last week, right? So nothing is final until it has the governor's signature. So we can't stop legislating even when we see some nice looking numbers on paper, right? We've got to make sure our legislators know what matters to us.
Yep.
Speaking of which, the current budget includes a line item that we know is wrong. We know it, right? And it will have a devastating impact on peer support in Georgia. Line 60.10 in the Senate budget, now line 60.17 in the House budget, includes language that says it will reduce state funds for Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network training for peer services by $1,058,000, which is not possible. Right? Just not possible. We don't receive that much funding in state dollars for all of the trainings we provide combined all year long. What we believe, based on looking at all of our numbers, since we are not currently allowed to discuss them with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, is that $1,014,000 of that budget line is actually funding for direct peer support services provided at Georgia's peer support wellness and respite centers. And they are a crucial part of Georgia's recovery-oriented system of care. They provide an alternative to psychiatric hospitalization that is not provided anywhere else in Georgia's public behavioral health care system. In 2019, the centers provided 5,262 overnight stays to Georgians, avoiding psychiatric hospitalization, saving the state of Georgia over $977,000 based on a $600 per night psychiatric hospital bed stay. You know, in addition to tons of other services and supports, including 15,192 people who participated in daily activities at the peer support wellness and respite centers. And that includes our recovery and double trouble and recovery meetings. It's easy on paper and in the DBHDD provider manual to draw a line between mental health and substance use, but in real life, for many of us, it's not that easy, right? That is why the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse and the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network work so closely together. We know that when funding for substance use goes down, there's a dramatic increase in demand for mental health services and vice versa, right? It's this thing, and we need all boats to rise right now, not go down. And we know that peer support works, and that's just not based on our lived experience and what we see in our families and communities. There's an article on the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration website right now titled, "Peer Support is the Future of Behavioral Health," right? Just period, like that's it. Dollar for dollar, investing in peer support is one of the smartest things our state can do for Georgia's communities, and we need for our legislature to understand that. No other organization provides the support provided at Georgia's peer support wellness and respite centers. We don't need to speculate about what will happen if these centers lose their funding. We only have to listen to Commissioner Fitzgerald, right? Increased suicidality, substance abuse disorders, and demands on crisis services. There are a lot of policies that appear at first glance to make economic sense, but the state of Georgia's 2010 settlement with the Department of Justice over its treatment of people in Georgia facilities makes clear that not every short-term budget balancing decision is good public health policy or good long-term economic policy. Georgia's peer support wellness and respite centers actually grew from that Department of Justice settlement and have become a central part of the peer support in Georgia. We don't believe our legislators want increased suicidality, substance abuse disorders, and demands on crisis services, but if they don't understand what they are voting on, if they don't understand what peer support services are, if they don't understand what these line items mean, they can't be blamed for voting for them, right? So that's why we're asking all Georgians to contact their legislators to ask them to restore peer recovery support services for mental health and substance use, including misidentified funds in the state budget. And I want to show you all real quickly. Can I share my screen?
Yes, Chris, I'm going to stop sharing mine. There you go. You should be able to share yours.
Okay, let's see.
Does that work?
Yeah, so I'm going to, not that, share content, screen. Okay, that's not working. Now, can you go back and just go to the gmhcn.org website? I'm on my,
oh, yeah, I guess.
And share your screen.
Let's see.
Oh, Brian's going to do it. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Brian's my hero. Okay, so you will see there the Senate and Human Resources subcommittee chairs, but at this point, we feel like it's really most important for Georgia citizens to contact our own individual legislators and let them know how you've been impacted in your community that voted for them. right? Because at this point, it's out of committee, coming out of committee. I don't know what the timeline is. Do you know, Neil or Jeff, what the timeline is on the budget?
Yeah, well, we know potentially Jeff's gonna go over it in just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. So on this page down at the bottom, you will see some, if you want to include information about the peer support, wellness, and respite centers, that would be great. But, you know, what we really want is for all funding for peer recovery support services to be restored at Georgia's peer support, wellness, and respite centers, recovery community organizations, and addiction recovery support centers. Like, we feel like, you know, Georgia gets more bang for its buck from those things than from any other thing we do, and we don't want to see them go away. You know, we created the national model for certified peer specialists, the first Medicaid billable CPS mental health and CPS addicted disease trainings were here in Georgia. You know, we are national leaders in these fields, and we want, you know, there's not much to be really proud of in Georgia's behavioral health care provider community, but that is really something we as a state can be proud of and have been proud of. The Georgia model, as is known, has been used in 37 other states, you know, and we led on that. And we want to maintain our leadership there, but we need the funding to do it. So with that, I will open it up to any questions or comments, or let go, whatever you need me to do, Neil.
Who's got a question for Chris? Chris, that data, those data are so important, especially around the ways that the peer support, wellness, and respite centers help individuals avoid hospitalization. I mean, by their, you know, we know that happens, and so who in the heck would want it to be any differently than have a, you know, an inexpensive yet high quality service like a peer support respite bed versus a inpatient hospitalization or crisis bed. So I just want to commend you for having that data. You guys always have had that good data, and I think the Forensic Peer Network, the Forensic Peer Mentor data are really good too. And it's, you know, you're outshining, you know, traditional services all across the board.
Yeah, you know, they actually, in the budget, the Forensic Peer Mentor funding actually did get restored in the budget, I think, but you know, that was actually Governor Deal when he was in. It was part of his, you know, Criminal Justice Reform Commission. They have recommended the expansion of that. So, you know, for what, 2 years later, 3 years later, for that to be recommended for elimination / reduction really didn't make sense. So we were really happy to see that funding come back, but there's a lot more we need for sure.
And Brian, are you seeing any other? You're really good about questions. I see one more for Chris. How can people access the peer support respite centers? Does it require a referral?
Hey, Neil, before we get to that question, can I interrupt?
Yeah, always.
All right. So we have our state senator, Valencia C., who was with us before.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand her my phone right here, and you just say hey to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I
Bye.
enjoyed being on the conference call and hearing all the wonderful things you all are doing. Keep up the good work. My word is always stay focused, because you got a plan and you got to work that plan. But thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of it. Thank you all, and have a blessed day and a great weekend, because it's supposed to be nicer this weekend.
Good job. We love you. Thanks for what you're doing for us.
All righty. Thank you.
And we have Senator Kay Kirkpatrick here. I know she's in a big hurry, so she wanted to come. She walked all the way over here. Senator, you got about 100 people right
Hi.
It may be a little loud in here. I'm not really sure.
You're good.
It's crazy times down here, and I appreciate what you all are doing. We're trying hard to get as much money put back in the budget as possible for recovery issues. And, you know, I've got a bill that y'all are interested in, and it's interesting right now because we're not really sure how many bills are going to get done. So I can promise you that if it doesn't get done, we'll just keep trying. And if the budget isn't what we want, then we'll keep pushing and find other ways to be sure that we are still able to serve the people that need it. So
Awesome.
Thank you all for all your hard work. I really
Senator,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for your leadership.
Thank you,
We really do appreciate you, and we love you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I'd hug you except
I know, we're not hugging everybody.
No hugging.
No hugging here. Okay, sorry, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Actually, Chris, Emily stuck a link in the chat box about how to refer to the wellness and respite centers, and that's probably the best bet, because yeah. But you can certainly talk about how how wonderful these centers are, because they truly, truly are.
Okay, I did not know what a respite center was until I went to work for the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse and was doing recovery community organization development work. And these people, Rosalind Hayes and Sherry Jenkins Tucker, came to meet with us to explain what the wellness centers were. And I still didn't really understand until I went to one. And what happens is there is no referral process. People self-identify as living with behavioral health or mental health condition, like diagnosis, like whatever you want to call it. And you can come and stay for 7 nights every 30 days. All you need is a Georgia driver's license to identify yourself as a Georgia citizen. You do a brief sort of introduction to the model to learn what the Peer Support Wellness and Respite Center is. And then every 30 days you can come and stay for 7 nights. And I have actually, as part of my 12-step sponsor hat role, recommended people or made the suggestion, that, people consider staying there when they've been going through particularly trying times and they're in that, I feel like I might relapse and I have all of this stuff going on, like job loss and, just that life stuff that happens in early recovery. And it's like, well, do you want to just check out for a couple of days and go get some support and, be in groups, and don't, wait until you get to that crisis thing, because for most of us, that drink doesn't just pop up in your hand, right? You have some signifiers that something's going on in your life. And the Peer Support Wellness and Respite Centers are a place where you can go and get support for that.
Awesome.
Jean Olszewski, what are you asking? I can't see the chat on my iPad. Did anyone see what Jean said?
Which funding budget items that Commissioner Fitzgerald recommended be restored did the Appropriation Committee decline to support? So it's confusing, right?
Go ahead.
It's confusing in ours as well. We're still kind of sorting that out since appropriations just met this morning, Jean, but I stuck the link to the Senate appropriations in the chat box.
But Jean, they also changed some of the line numbers, which didn't help. But for instance, with the Respect Institute, that had been recommended for the restoration of, originally it was a $540,000 reduction in funding, and then the commissioner recommended a lower level than what is showing here, which is a $430,000 reduction. So, the Respect Institute, if this were to go through, wouldn't be able to look the same and be the same, with
right.
That percentage, $430,000 is a huge chunk of their budget.
Yep. So thank you, Chris. And we'll keep tracking questions going on, but we've got about 10 more minutes, and I wanted Jeff to give his advocacy updates, because we've had some, as we said, there's some big budget updates to give and some strategy that we're going to need, because we're not done yet, you guys. But I'm telling you, we got to keep the faith. We've never in the 12 years I've been in this organization, we've never had a full-time person down at the Capitol like Jeff is, and he is fighting for us, and I'm fighting for us, and I know you are all fighting for us. So just know that it's not over yet. But Jeff, why don't you go ahead and give us an update of what you heard at the Senate appropriations today and where we are going forward.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I do want to say there's potentially some good legislative news on an important piece of legislation, House Bill 799, and Shaw Blackman, who's the representative, he may pop in to tell you all that would be some good news this session. But first, an update on the timeline. They are planning to work through this Friday, that we believe, take Father's Day weekend off, come back in Monday and work through the next Saturday and potentially adjourn next Saturday. Now, part of that is some procedural rules that things take a certain amount of time. But the big driver is, of course, the state budget. Now, this morning, the Senate Appropriations Committee passed a budget out that now goes to the full Senate. Now, I can promise you nothing, but I'm certain it's going to pass the full Senate without debate. There was no debate this morning in the committee from the Democrats or Republicans. It took less than 15 minutes to move it with no questions. The Senate has pretty much got their document, and they're going to pass it as an institution. It will next go to the House. When the House gets it, it will go to House Appropriations. They will deal with it and send it to the full House. The two budgets will not match. That's an all but a certainty. And they will have what's called a conference committee. And then they will do their best to agree. And all this should take place in that timeline are articulated before the next Saturday. So it will be both incredibly slow and incredibly busy all at the same time. So here's what we were looking at, 3 line items in particular this morning, not only at 3, but 3 in particular. 2 of those 3, one involving the NICU program, which we all love and support, there was no change from what the commissioner recommended. On one of the 3, there is a change. Frankly, it's no secrets or anything. The commissioner recommended, Commissioner Fitzgerald, and I want to thank Commissioner Fitzgerald for the recommendation of restoring $3.5 million out of the $4 million for what I call the RCO programs. I know there's other acronyms. This morning, the Senate, in its wisdom, saw fit to make that number $2 million. So that is a $1.5 million difference there. Though that's not great news, but it's not disastrous news. I've used the baseball game analogy to you all many times, and I would suggest to you that we are now in the 7th inning. So there's work to be done. I want to ask you all to work with us on the timeline. We have already met with members of the House today. We have met with members of the Senate today. We are formulating a plan. It will take us a few hours and maybe today and tomorrow to feel good about that plan. But we're coming up with a plan, and this is the important thing to not gloss over. With the partnership of members, we're not just doing this by ourselves. We've got members trying to help us. That's incredibly important. So if you'll just be patient for today and tomorrow, we're going to have a plan, we'll have a timeline, and we will offer that plan to you for your consideration as a community. We had 4 great events last week that made a big difference. And we'll plan some more events, and we'll plan some more emails, and we'll plan some more stuff. But the timing is critical, and the tone is critical. What is not debatable is our resolute posture. We're going to be firm. We're going to be direct. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be loud. We're just going to do it in the way that our partners need us to do it. We're listening to our partners and our allies who are in the membership and finding out how we help the members that want to help us. And we'll take their guidance. We'll be thankful for their guidance. But that's my ask to you is let us process what happened this morning. I would say to you, while it wasn't great news, it wasn't devastating news. And I heard from a very, very senior member of the Senate who I know genuinely supports us. And they said, Jeff, there are some programs that went away today 100%. And we're fighting. We're doing the best we can. They know the process isn't over. We are alive. We're fighting in the House. And I think we're about to have an incredibly special guest who's approaching. She's none other than Representative Katie Dempsey, one of the greatest Republican and members of the state House is what I was trying to say, champions of recovery. So I'm going to hand you my phone. There's a lot of people on this call.
Well, hey,
Katie.
gosh, it's great to see you, Neil, particularly, and just to know that so many of you are listening and pay attention. I know there's a budget I hear that has made its way out a bit. I just want to say how important your advocacy is and everything you're doing. Please continue to do that. This budget does not mean the very end is happening here yet. I know there's some restores, some partial restores. I have not seen it. I've been working with Michael to learn more and more. And we will both be advocating for anything we can possibly do for you, but your voices matter. So don't park them yet. Keep letting us know.
Oh, ma'am, we got
Thank
you.
you so much for all you have done through this time and all you will continue to do. I'll be listening, paying attention, and staying in touch with this gentleman right here that's hands-on right here at the Capitol.
He's a
God
stalker.
bless each of you. Persevere.
Thank you, Representative Dempsey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We love you and we appreciate you and respect you and thank you for everything.
Tell her we love her.
So, and Neil said we love her. There we go. So anyways, truly a champion, and she does so much hard work. We see some of it on TV and in public and social media, but we don't see nearly the volume of work she does. I don't want to say behind the scenes, but just off camera. I mean, just that doesn't have a camera on it, and she's tireless for us. So to begin to wrap up in the interest of time, Neil, as you heard, we got some work to do.
Yes.
We're not done yet,
So Jeff,
and great things coming.
yeah, thank you. And let me just say, we've got a couple of questions. People are confused. So I just want to reiterate, and maybe you can help me reinforce this. So what happened today was appropriations, the Senate appropriations posted their budget. And what it said was that instead of the $4 million, initially we started with $4 million for the ARSCs, that was eliminated. And then Commissioner Fitzgerald put back 3.5 million. And now the Senate appropriation said, no, that's 2 million. So now the House gets to pass theirs. And if those don't match, they go into a conference committee. So we're at that point that really, this is all, as Jeff said, it feels slow motion, but it's moving fast. So we don't know. So hopefully that's not too confusing. Right now, the Senate has 2 million in there. We think that the House will have 3.5, but we don't know, right, Jeff? We haven't checked that yet.
Well, correct. And that's what Representative Dempsey, I should say, was just telling us, that she literally has been in session. So she hasn't had time to sit down with Michael, who's a House research person that works with her, and process it. That's what I mean about, I implore everybody, give us today and tomorrow. It just takes some time to process these things. But I promise you that Representative Dempsey's focused like a laser. I'm focused like a laser. Neil's focused like a laser. There will be a plan. It will be aggressive. It will have the right tone that our chief ally, Katie Dempsey, needs from us. But give us a little bit of time to get that plan out there. But when it comes, we'll be asking you to move quickly on that timeline. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. It's an imperfectly perfect process, y'all. Yep. Democracy and freedom beats the heck out of a dictatorship, but it's messy. And we're in the middle of a mess, but we got friends and we're working on it for you. And in that sense, what a blessing this is for all of us.
And I hope everybody heard, and this is for the Mental Health Consumer Network too, you guys. Our voices are raised for them as well. So, and I hope we all heard what Representative Dempsey, again, she's the chair of a very important appropriations subcommittee. She said, your voices matter. Your advocacy is on point. Keep doing it. Keep driving. Don't stop. She's telling us that. And, we always hear that. I mean, I think it wasn't one of our famous presidents said, I'll move in the direction you push me to move. So we got to keep pushing. So that's what this is all about. So we will, we'll keep on it. I trust Representative Dempsey. I trust, Jeff, you guys can trust me that Jeff will not move from his post until this is done. And he's going to fight with everything he has as well. So just know that.
Thank you for those kind words. And let me reiterate, we're going to work with our allies here. We're going to have that aggressive plan. It's coming. And when it comes, we're going to ask you to be equally aggressive. So chill for an hour, a day or two. Don't worry. Let not your heart be troubled. We're not done yet. We're still in the game. I want to be blunt. There's some causes that may no longer be in the game. We're in the game. And that's because of you. Everybody on this call and all of our friends that couldn't make this call, our advocacy has made a difference. We're going to keep advocating, and we're going to just, we're going to do this thing together as a community. Thank you for your support. Continue to want to earn your trust, and thank you. So Neil, with that, I don't see the other representative here. It is 1 o'clock. So, I'm going to just say thank you to everybody. and
Okay.
turn this back over to you.
Okay, great. I'll wrap it up by saying we'll be here right here next Wednesday for our 14th straight recovery town hall. This has really made a difference in our advocacy, you guys. And I know this because I fought it by myself with just trying to gather everybody together. It's like herding cats down there, and it just doesn't work with someone who doesn't have the ins and outs like Jeff does. So we are so lucky to have him on board and fighting for us. If you have any questions, you can write to him, you can write to me, you can write to anyone on our team, and we'll try to get the answers for you. You will know when we know. We're not going to keep anything close to the vest. We are very transparent. So we just want to say thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, United States Senator Loeffler. And you guys get out there. Recovery is real, and stay tuned for more. We love
Jeff's
y'all.
got someone else with us.
Oh, who? Okay, Jeff's got someone.
Yep.
No, I don't have somebody with us, but Neil, I would have felt bad. Actually, I think we should announce to those that are still on the call the press release we're putting out today, if you think that would make sense.
Sure, go ahead.
So thank you. So at Neil's direction, the Georgia Council is putting out a release as soon as I get home and have lunch, to be honest. Calling, I know, lunch? Who said there before? Calling for, okay, serious business. In all seriousness, calling for, joining with some other organizations, calling for an increase in the tobacco tax. We understand that cuts are reality, but we also support the concept of finding new sources of revenue. So we are going on the record today with this particular call for this particular way to increase revenue. And we hope that when you see that release, that you will share it with your local leaders and that you'll be supportive of this effort that at Neil's direction the council's taken. So Neil, thank you for that leadership. And you'll see that statement coming out today.
Yep, it's not just me, it's our board. Our board passed it unanimously. They want to see this. This is something that they believe in. They're businessmen, they get it. They're business people, most of them, and the ones who aren't believe in recovery, and they understand that something like a tobacco tax can help fund mental health and substance use disorder recovery supports going forward. So we're lucky to have a board, and we'll get you with you guys and let you know about that as soon as we release that press release this afternoon. All right, I think that's it. Brian, anything from you?
Thank you all for joining us once again.
All right, my producer. Okay, thank you guys. See you next week.